Welcome back, everyone, to this month's episode of ACE Mastery Monthly, where we're going to kind of build on the previous topic where we were looking at time management and building out those important time management skills and identifying those blocks of time to study. Well, now we're looking at probably the most important video in the entire series of once you've identified those blocks of time, how are you going to use those blocks of time most effectively to study smart? A lot of times we hear about kids studying or studying hard, but there's a difference between studying hard and studying smart. So let's first get this out of the way. Students will obviously, I've done this for a number of years, will come up, oh, I studied. Well, what did you do? Oh, I rewrote or reread my notes a bunch of times. That's passive. You can reread your notes a bunch of times. You are unlikely to remember everything that you read. Like rereading notes is not enough to actually retain information. Just strictly rereading the textbook is not enough to retain information. Reading the textbook is an important thing, but if that's the only thing that you're doing to study and retain information, you're not going to be successful and you're going to end up being extremely frustrated. So really the issue is you're not engaging with that content. You're just kind of seeing the information, but you're not using that information. You're not going to be able to answer the application, those harder questions. Like you see all the information, but you're not really testing yourself, quizzing yourself, actually making yourself remember that information. It's kind of just watching a movie. You don't remember every single thing that happens in the movie. You might memorize the generalized plot, but you're really not just actually getting everything you need to out of that movie by just watching it a few times or constantly rewatching it. So what are some strategies that you should use during these study block periods? One of the most research-based one is this idea of active recall, which basically is testing yourself to making it stick. So there's many different ways that you can do this. So you're testing yourself, not just rereading it, so you're challenging your brain. Some people, I know one thing I would do is I would look at my notes, look away, try to remember what I just read, look back and kind of confirm it. Even though I'm reading my notes, I'm not just rereading them, I'm using those notes, I'm testing myself, I'm walking across campus, repeating and thinking about what I just read or what that slide looked like or what information I need on that study guide. All of this is going to strengthen that understanding and force that deeper processing, and it's going to boost that long-term memory. And the whole idea is going to make it more engaging, that you're just not staring at that study guide, staring at that note page, you're doing something with it. So there's many different tools that you can do for active recall. You can do things like flashcards, either physical ones or things like with Quizlet or Quizlet Plus. You can make practice questions or past papers. If your teachers aren't providing you with past papers, you can find them yourselves from different websites by just Googling the syllabus and past papers. Or even, especially in the day of AI, you can take pictures of your notes, copy and paste your notes, and put it into ChatGPT, put it into any of these AI systems, and just ask it to produce practice tests for you that will prepare you for that exam, or put the study guide in. Use AI to your advantage to produce resources that your teacher might not be providing to you. As I said, self-quizzing with notes closed. This idea of just looking at really closing the notes and just repeating to yourself what are these different facts that you need to know for the test. Another strategy is spaced repetition, which is reviewing for retention. Just like practicing, you're going to need to have those small little intervals that build up that strength. So on the left-hand slide here is what's called the forgetting curve. So this is looking at your memory retention once you first learn something and after a period of days. So you can see that after about 3 days of first learning something, you're at 60% retention of that information. You lose quite a bit of it within that first hour after you walk out of the classroom. So within 1 day, though, you're about 80%. If you review at that point and bring it back to 100%, you can see it takes an additional 2 days and you're back down to the 80% versus that 1 day. And you can see that even if you never reviewed again, it takes a full 7 days for you to reach that 60% chunk, so an entire day longer. Well, imagine if you wait 2 more days and review. Every time you get to the 8% you review again, notice that every time it's taking longer and longer for you to forget. Just like practicing, just like playing a sport, that the more you practice, the better you perform. The more consistent you are at reviewing and studying and recalling that information, the better your scores will be and the longer that their retention will last. And remember, these are marathons. These are not sprints. All of your ACE exams back in maybe in middle school, you were very good at just cram, study. I passed the test. All right, now I don't need to remember any of it. Well, you have ACE exams at the end of this year where you need to remember all of it. You need to space yourself and pace yourself and make it easier at the end of the year through spaced repetition. Constantly reviewing that old stuff will make it easier in the end. So some examples for that, you have flashcard apps like Anki and Quizlet, which do have spaced repetition, where they will kind of give you certain cards and they kind of use their algorithm to space them out. And if you're more confident with them, they'll show them less. If you're less confident, they'll show those concepts or the questions more. Calendar reminders for review sessions. Revisiting notes after 1 day, 3 day, 1 week. Once again, it's really setting up that schedule that we saw with that time management video of when you're building out these times where you can review this information. And we're not talking about hour-long study sessions. We're talking about 10, 15 minutes per class and spacing it out. So you're constantly just building up that little bit of recall every single time, so that by the time that test comes, of course, you know it all. Another strategy is called interleaving, which is this idea of mixing it up. So instead of just spending 3 hours on one topic or one course, chunking it. 10 minutes on this course. I'm going to do 10 minutes. I'm going to do 2 problems, my Algebra 2 homework. Then I'm going to go back to write my intro paragraph for my English essay. Then I'm going to read a page or 2 of my history notes. All of that is just kind of mixing it and keeping your brain engaged. So it improves problem solving and adaptability because it forces you to switch strategy. Your brain's constantly having to switch. It's the same idea as like muscle groups and working them. That you just don't work the same muscle group day after day after day. You should be mixing and matching different workout groups, different muscle groups with your different workouts. And it prevents that illusion of mastery because you're constantly switching back and forth. You're not like, oh, I know all this stuff. Well, yeah, you do at that moment because you spent all this time on it. But by constantly switching back and forth, you can be like, oh, wait, never mind. I actually don't remember all this. Let me spend a little bit more time on this part of it. So as examples, mixing biology topics, so like switching between enzymes, photosynthesis, water in one study block, combining different types of practice questions. Maybe I'll do a few multiple choice, then I'll do a few written responses. And as I kind of mentioned, rotating between subjects while reviewing notes, not just cramming for one class, but really mixing and matching those different notes and those different courses to keep your brain engaged. Another thing you can do is mind mapping, which I know quite a few students like the visuals of this. So an example we can see here of like a Civil War DBQ. So the idea is taking like text or information, making it more engaging in a visual. So it could be a concept map, usually a concept map we're talking about, or it could just be some way to organize that information with pictures or even just flowcharts showing how that information kind of connects to each other. So it encourages active engagement rather than just reading notes. You can use paper and colored pens to create this. Digital apps like Canva, MindMeister, or Miro. Really, you're starting with that central topic and then kind of branching it out from there. So you can see here the Civil War DBQ for this intro, what things do they want to include, what's their thesis statement, how they want to start it, their body paragraphs, what are the main topics of it, what documents are they, what pieces of text are they using in each of these body paragraphs, and what information are they using from that document to kind of just organize it in this flowchart idea instead of just necessarily like an outline style to increase retention. So example of a study session routine. So one, we said you need to make sure you set some clear goals for each study session. So like, what do you actually want to accomplish? In these next 15 minutes, I want to review my notes on enzymes and also read 2 pages of history. Then go through that kind of that active recall of while you're reviewing your notes. Once again, you're not just rereading it, you're recalling that fact, you're reading that fact, you're looking in the way. For example, in let's say enzymes, once again, you're looking at that temperature versus rate of reaction graph. You're reading the description, you're looking away and going, all right, as I increase the temperature, there's more kinetic energy, which means there's more collisions between enzyme and substrate, so more ES complexes, so higher reaction rate. Those are the kind of things that you should be doing. And then you look back and you confirm, yeah, what I just said is everything I needed. Like those are active techniques. Cause of the Civil War, looking at this information, Ms. Soto's better with that stuff, but looking at the information, looking away, and then reviewing it and kind of checking yourself. As we said, space practice, making sure that you're spacing out, just like any kind of practice. You can't do 3 hours of practice the day before the game and expect to perform well. You have to space this stuff out. You have to keep building. We see that forgetting curve. You have to keep reinforcing it so every time it keeps building. We always joke in like math classes that you learn more of the previous math class and the next math class than you did at time. I think my students in calculus learn way more algebra 2 and pre-calculus in my class than even calculus by the end of it because it's all that repetition and rebuilding that knowledge. Using visuals, so using diagrams to help organize information in a way that makes sense to you. So obviously different people organize that in different ways. So that's really not a one-size-fits-all model. Some people like color, some people don't like color, some people like graphic organizers, some people don't love them as much. It's really mixing and matching and figuring out what works best for you. And then reviewing itself. So regularly revisiting that material to identify needs. And I also want to make clear that this is not as I kind of said, this is not a one-size-fits-all model. Like active recall, space practice, those are research-based. There is no ifs, ands, buts about it. Like those are things you need to do. But really the how you do it in terms of mind mapping versus always making flashcards versus looking at your notes, looking away, that really is up to you. And it is a game of that you kind of have to just figure out what works best for you. Sometimes you'll figure out, oh, that did not work. I need to try this other strategy instead. A bonus tip is to avoid distraction. This is called the Pomodoro method. So the idea is basically rewarding yourself. There's some debate over this because some people say you become more focused on the time than what you're actually doing with that time. But the idea is rewards, that after 25 minutes of doing something, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. After completing my intro and first body paragraph, I'm going to play 5 minutes of a video game on my phone. But really the problem with that, and really the main thing, is making sure that you are disciplined enough to follow through with it. That you're not just watching the clock of, oh my goodness, another 2 minutes, I get to take a break. Or that 5 minutes turns into 15 minutes. So it really is important. It's a strategy that does work, but you have to be committed to it. I'm going to go full effort for these 25 minutes, take that little break. Go full effort for another 25 minutes, take that little break. And not to make it sad, but here are some signs that you're really not going to be successful in that assessment. So if you relied only on passive review, just reading your notes without testing yourself, you're probably not going to be very successful, and you're going to be sad like this poor person. If you avoid practice questions, if you have skipped the exercises or past papers, so if you're walking into Mr. Gelsma's test and you haven't done any of the homework, are you really likely to be successful in that assessment? You don't show up to a game without practicing. So I'm not sure why students think that they should show up to tests and quizzes without practicing. If they're not providing you with practice questions, you could ask them, like, hey, do you have any extra practice for this? And if not, in the end, like, sometimes you have to take ownership of that and go out above and beyond, because in the end, this is your grade. In college, this is you're expected to do X, Y, and Z, that if they're not providing, maybe you need to go find online and find something that matches it. Or as I already mentioned, use AI, use the advantages of AI, put in your notes, put in the information, create me a practice test for this topic for this class, or here's the learning objectives. I need to create me practice questions about these different topics for AICE biology, for AICE US history. It's really on you eventually to create what you need for success. And another way that you know that you're not going to be successful is if you can't explain it to somebody else. Why are your teachers so smart? Why are your teachers know all this information? It has nothing to do with our natural intelligence. It has everything to do with we have to explain it to somebody else over and over and over and over again. So if you can't simplify it, you really don't know it. So explain it to a different way really helps it make it stick and really highlights gap. If someone asks you a question, you can go, oh, I actually don't know that. I need to go look that up. I need to go review that. Like, how would you know you didn't know that until someone asked you or you asked them to explain something? It doesn't even matter if you're talking to someone that knows the content. Like just talking it through, explaining to somebody else, teaching somebody else, a dog, a pet, a stuffed animal. They don't have to talk back. The whole idea is the process of, can you explain it? Can you imagine and explain it in a way that either your teacher would explain it or another person that's a subject master would explain it? So action step challenge. So the goal is to try new strategies, track progress, and share experiences. So this QR code is, and I'll also put the link obviously underneath the video and our link in Google Classroom. This is a link to a folder with some additional resources about note-taking and time management and different study strategies. Some of them have been listed here. We'll add more to that folder kind of as it grows, so it just kind of will be a nice resource folder with all this different information. So really the expectation is, based on what you've seen in this video, is try a new strategy, experiment. You're not going to necessarily find everything the first time. I don't think any of your teachers necessarily expect you to go from a 30 to a 90 from one test to another. We want to see progress. We want to see improvement. We want to see you putting an effort in and trying different ways that you can figure out what works best for you. As I kind of track your progress, if you went from a 40 to a 60, That's a 50% improvement. That is a pretty large improvement. Next time, go from a 60 to an 80, then 80 to 100. It's okay to show improvement. If you're doing poorly on something, put in the work, do better. We don't expect perfection if you're struggling. We expect you to keep working and trying and keep pushing yourself towards that perfection. And sharing with a friend. So we have some students study way better than I ever did in college or high school. Use them. You have classmates that have different strategies that work for them that they might not even realize they're using them. A lot of times, like especially with that looking away, like how do I study? I really didn't ever realize that until I became a teacher. I guess I was studying when I was just constantly thinking about it walking across campus or looking at him and looking away. That talk to each other of, hey, this is how I read for this, or hey, you did really well on this thing. What did you do? Communicate, use each other. Hope you enjoyed this video on study skills and you came away with the importance of spaced repetition and active recall, and are going to use some of these strategies now to improve yourself, improve your study skills. Once again, not just for high school and not just for AICE, but really for life in general, because I think all your teachers will tell you, we don't really care if you remember the content from all our classes 15, 20 years from now. We do care if you know how to learn, how to study, how to reflect, and how to do better. So this concludes this month's episode of AICE Mastery Monthly. AICE Mastery Monthly out.